improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hasani.
And I am Janella.
We're here this morning continuing in a great series that we've been talking about, high-risk affairs. You know, we've been talking about it from a variety of different perspectives, high-risk times, right, that people go through, high-risks transitions that people make in their lives. Now we're going to be talking about high-risk personal factors and how all of these things contribute to the why. Many of you out there want to know, well, why did this happen? And where did this come from? And I never saw it coming. There are certain things that are happening underneath the surface that you may not be privy to. And as we unpack this today, hopefully you'll get more insight, which will lead to some continual conversations that you can have with your spouse that are healing, not triggering, not those that set you back, but those that thrust you forward. So we're excited about that today. Once again, Last Chance Weekend coming up August 12th through the 14th. We hope that you attend. But I want to give you a different testimonial today. As you know, Foundry is a 12-week program for men that is really making transformational change in their lives. I want to share with you a testimonial about that. So if you're a man or if you're a woman who has a man who's considering whether they should do it, take a look at this. We'll be right back.
Foundry saved my life as I know it. My name is Anthony. I'm from Northern Colorado. The day I signed up for Foundry, I had just completed the Last Chance Weekend. And before that, I was out of the house. I was having to make arrangements to see my daughter, make arrangements to even come in my own home. And my wife and I, we were in the process of signing divorce papers and getting them filed. Went to the Last Chance Weekend, and that's really what it was. It was a last chance. It was not a fix-all, and that's really where Foundry starts coming in, is after that last chance, is it's making certain that that last chance is a good last chance. We met once a week for class time. We checked in every day as the group. We had weekly assignments that we had to do, and Foundry really acted as a guide and a map, and the more you followed that guide and the more you followed that map, the more success people saw. About halfway through the class, I had a light bulb moment. The light clicked on, and all of the doors started to open for me, whether it be with my wife, interactions at just with family members, with just random people, and as well as business. Literally all of the doors started to fly open for me. The man that was outside his house, not able to see his daughter and having to make arrangements just 3 months ago, has now started a business and is officially in 3 months replaced all of my bills, and I don't have to touch it anymore. My wife and I are in a better place than we have been in years, many years, and we're actually in probably a better place than even 6 months after we were dating. I can't say enough about Foundry. It literally did it. It saved life as I know it.
That's right. That was Anthony. Anthony went through the Foundry program and had a transformational experience. And we're just excited for his change, his growth, and what it's done for his life, his marriage, his business, every aspect of his life. And so we want to encourage you, register, look into it, go to the website, find out more. But we're talking about high-risk factors in a person's life that can contribute to an affair. And once again, it is an honor to have a fellow practitioner, Janella Bradley, with us here this morning. Janella, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's dive right into this conversation. It's such a meaty one. Let's just talk about it. High risk factors that lead to an affair. The first thing that really comes to my mind, and one of the questions that we're always asking when we do counseling with couples is we ask about family history, right? One of the questions I'll ask is, hey, did you grow up with mom and dad? What type of relationship did they have? Was there infidelity in the home? What did you observe? What did you see? Because that's a contributing factor. But unpack this for us.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that in counseling, this is something that we actually bring up, because most couples, they probably wouldn't even think to ask that or even know why this is important to know. Most people growing up, even if the children in the home are unaware that there may have been infidelity in the household, parents are actually modeling behaviors to them, whether they realize it or not. And what we have found is with infidelity that it can actually pass down from generation to generation. Sometimes it may even skip a generation, but the fact remains, if it's in the family tree, it's a high possibility that it can show up in your life. So that's why it's really important to know if that is in the family history, because it actually can show up. And even like with some of the kids, if they're witnessing that, they may not know that an affair is going on, but they can feel the pain, the tension within the household. So the parents are modeling this behavior. So what happens with children? They grow up and they become adults and they get into relationships, and they may not fully understand what they're displaying, but they're showing what their parents showed them because there was infidelity in the household.
It's so true. And for children, to your point, we mirror what has been modeled for us. And whatever we're exposed to, not all children understand it. It's not a matter of right or wrong, it's a matter of what's normal, what I'm exposed to, what it was. If love in my household meant, yelling, screaming, fussing, and fighting, and then making up afterwards, well, that's the model that I now mirror. So I bring that into my adult relationship. If there was all types of uncles who weren't blood related that I saw passing through my household, and I'm like, who's that? Oh, that's Uncle then that's what's normal to me. I didn't understand it at the time, but as I grew older and started to think, wait a minute, that wasn't Uncle such and such. That was, and so to your point, it has a significant impact. But even when there hasn't been an affair, sometimes a marital conflict in the household that can create an injury in a child, and they grow up with a deficiency, right? They grow up with an emotional void, if you will, and they're looking to have that void filled in their adult life that they didn't get filled in their home because of the family dynamics. So you have to understand, as parents, you are leaving a legacy to your children. It's more than just an insurance policy that you leave behind, I split out policy and went to the kids. No, you're leaving a legacy with everything that you do: your character, your behavior, your traditions, your the principles you live by. And so that's why it's critically important. So oftentimes, to your point, a person's family history has a significant impact on how one shows up in their adult relationships. And so I would encourage you, have you had those conversations with your parents? Have you taken the time to reflect upon your upbringing and your childhood and what you were exposed to? Because it may have played a significant influence subconsciously in how you show up in your relationship. But in addition to a household where there are two parents, what about a single parent or blended family household? What about that?
And the single parent and
Okay, I think
blended,
Janella's frozen. Okay.
can you hear me?
Go ahead, Janella.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
In a single parent blended family household, sometimes, even in a perfect scenario, everyone's meeting each other needs and things like that. Sometimes emotional needs are unmet because it's hard just bringing up a normal family. But when you're trying to fuse two different
Yeah,
concepts, two different types of families together, it actually can cause, issues. So the children, once again, are watching and modeling, but they grow up with those voids. So when they're trying to develop into their relationship, they don't have the tools they need to have a successful relationship because they didn't see it, they didn't receive it. So it's a huge void.
absolutely, absolutely. And we've seen the impact of that. And listen, we're not saying that if you come from a single parent household or a blended family, that you are doomed, that you are marked, that life will never be well for you. You'll never have a healthy relationship, because that's not the case either. There are a number of contributing factors. This can potentially be one of them. And so it's just something to be mindful of and something to really consider and do a deep dive, especially if you're going through a discovery process where you're trying to unpack, the reasons that contributed to any type of an affair. Gonzalez says, not throwing my family under the bus. I've learned that it's definitely been an issue for over 100 years. We have to break the curse. And I think that's a powerful point. You mentioned the generational impact and how sometimes things can skip over a generation. There is such a thing as generational curses and generational blessings. Now, whether you know that scripturally, it is a real thing. And we've seen that passed down in good ways and in bad. And so it's something to be mindful of and consider. So Gonzalez, excellent point that you're raising. What do you think about that, Janella? The whole idea of a generational curse.
I'm glad he mentioned that, because a lot of times we will accept like, oh, we have diabetes in our family, as it relates to like health and medical issues. We kind of have the awareness that, oh, there's heart disease and different type things that may be passed down. But when it actually comes to something like infidelity, you're like, what? But when you stop and think about it, you're like, you know what? My grandfather was one, my daddy was one, or, you just start thinking about it and you'll realize that it does actually pass down. And another thing, for some reason, people think secrecy is going to stop it or cover it up. They'll have everyone in the family may know that it's going on, but they may block it from children. And then when the parent pass away, then this child shows up at the funeral. So even if you have done a perfect job of covering it up, you never know when all of those skeletons going to come dancing out that closet. So it's best to just confront it head on so people can start doing the work to change their lives, and the next generation can have a chance to break it. But hopefully we can break it with you.
Excellent point. Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about high-risk personal factors that lead to an affair. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this quick announcement.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. If you're just tuning in, welcome. My name is Hasani, and this is Janella Bradley, and we're talking about high-risk personal factors that can lead to an affair. And we just went through quite a few of them already to start the show. We're talking about family of origin in terms of its influence with infidelity and the single parent blended family dynamic. But we're going to go to the next one. This is a really interesting one. It is personal abuse and chronic conflict. I want you to start us off. This is going to be a good one.
Exactly. And physical abuse and chronic conflict, that is trauma within itself. So growing up as a child, if that was your norm, you could imagine the hurt, the pain that you had to work through and just try to show up in the world. So now you're in a relationship and you're expected to provide all of these sources of support, and you can't. So the person that has been physically abused, they're not able to show up because there's so much breakdown, there's so much turmoil within that they haven't unpacked. So they may look to outside sources to fulfill that need, whether it's drugs or sex or whatever, because they can't emotionally give and they cannot emotionally receive because the trauma that has been unhealed in their lives.
And to that point, if as a child or as an adolescent or as a single person, when you experience conflict or some type of crisis or trauma or just stress, and you use sex as a form of sedation. Now, when you enter into a marriage and you experience normal stresses and pressures and challenges, you will go back to the same thing that you did that worked when you were single, sex. And many people think, well, if we just have sex, it's a problem solver. If we just have sex, things will be all right. But when you're in a high conflict situation with a spouse, not readily available, because maybe for you, there's some couples out there, we fight hard but we make love hard. We have the best sex as makeup sex, and some people can't do that. Like, you offended me, don't touch me, right? And so sex is not readily available, and so what happens is, well, if I can't get it from you, this is the way I've always dealt in my habit forming behavior. And so it increases the probability of you going out and getting it from somewhere to get the release, to get the stress-free feeling that you've been searching for. And that's a contributing factor to an affair. So this is why it's so important. Like, when you go through premarital counseling, which most people don't, make sure you do something comprehensive. That's why I'm so excited that we have Walter and Charmaine Jennings on our team, because they've spent over a decade really, giving couples foundation for what marriage is going to be like, and digging deep into the crevices of a person's personal history to determine what type of challenges they may endure within the confines of that marriage. And so we say this all the time: when you marry somebody, you're marrying their past, their present, and their future. So when people tell you, well, my past, it don't matter, passes in the past. No, it matters. Formed and shaped who you are. You can't deny your past. It's a part of your makeup. And unless we heal some old wounds and address some old things, you can't change the past, but you can certainly change your relationship you have with the past and reconcile some things so it doesn't bleed into your present relationship. And that's what we're having today. And so a lot of times a spouse is saying, well, what did I do? How did I not show up? I must not be pretty enough. I must not cook well enough. I must not give you enough sex. And the affair, many people say, babe, it wasn't you, it was me. And it sounds cliche. It sounds like insincere and ingenuine, but there's probably a lot of validity to it. It isn't you. It's me. It's stuff that I have yet to unpack. It's stuff that I've known that I've suppressed. It's stuff that maybe I made light of and it was no big deal. It's stuff that I never resolved, never healed from. And unfortunately, you are now the victim of my bad habits, behaviors, and the things that I have not dealt with. These are the things that happen in relationships all the time, Janella.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the thing about the premarital counseling. If you're listening and you never had premarital counseling, or you had some and it was whack or trashy, like I like to say, that has been you, please reach out. It's never too late to still unpack these things, because guess what? You still are who you are. You still have those family histories. You still have those things that are going on. Maybe everything seems to be flowing smoothly, but you feel like maybe it could be better. Maybe our relationship can thrive more. So some of these things may be contributing to your marriage not being where you want it to be. So if you're in the dating phase or if you're engaged, please reach out, or please find somewhere where you can get that comprehensive breakdown so you can at least have a chance to have a beautiful marriage and not go through all of these valleys. I mean, life is going to bring you those dips and valleys and everything, but I'm talking about those things that can rock a marriage to a core. You can avoid those pitfalls. And of course, if you find yourself in those situations already, you definitely need to reach out because you don't have the tools to break the pattern. You need help. This stuff is heavy, it's deep, and you definitely want people who understand, know where you've been, and to help pull you out of this mess so you can continue to live and thrive, and we can see more beautiful, flourishing marriages in the world, because that's the goal. We want people to live in healthiness, happiness, and abundance so we can model the right thing in front of our children if we have children.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a little choppy. I don't know if it's my side, your side, but it's a little bit choppy. Hopefully, the viewers can hear this. But let's go to the next one because there's some other contributing factors that we really have to talk about, and that is sexual molestation. Now, let me just start off with this. Like, one of the things that's critically important to understand and unpack, right? If you're going to get, it's important to know a person's sexual history, and this is where there's a lot of, let us say, lack of clarity, a lot of vagueness, a lot of unanswered questions. People don't like to talk about one's sexual past. What is this? What happened in the past is my past. It's irrelevant. No, but it's very, very, very relevant, particularly when you've experienced some type of abuse. Because what happens is now you may attach shame to sex. You may make a connotation: sex is deceptive, sex is, taking advantage, sex is it's aggressive. And so if that is your psyche and your mindset, because that's been your past, you will bring that into your adult relationship where sex is a gift given by God that you should be freely expressing. But because you haven't really resolved and dealt with the molestation issues or whatever the case may be, it now has a stain on the connection between partners. And oftentimes you have many suppress their sexuality, some who literally become asexual as a result of it. There's some people who become very hypersexual and have this insatiable desire and always have to have it. So it manifests in a number of different ways, but it can significantly impact the marriage, if it's not understood, if it's not dealt with, if it's not talked about. Listen, I've counseled a couple where, one spouse wanted to know about the other spouse's situation with a particular person in their life. And they said, I'm not bringing it up. I don't trust you. I'm not going to share it. Leave it alone. It's off the table. And so that created a huge emotional disconnect, which impacted their sexuality because there was this dark cloud over her sexual past that impacted their ability to come together in the fullness of their intimacy. Janella, what are your thoughts about molestation?
My thoughts are a lot of people have experienced it. I believe reports are like 20 to 30% of females have experienced some molestation in their childhood, and for the males it's like 5 to 20%. And a lot of times people are very ashamed of that. They do not want people to know, and that actually includes their spouse. So that is very hard for a spouse to try to figure out what's going on. When I touch her a certain way, she responds this way, or he wants to avoid this, and they have no clue, no idea where that is coming from. So there can be no healing or growth in that area if it's not addressed. But honestly, it is a very painful experience. So imagine the hurt and pain the person who experienced that is going through. So I would encourage anyone who have dealt with that and haven't addressed it with their spouse to do that, so you can, one, get the healing for yourself and bring out the healing in your marriage, because actually when you do that work, it's nothing but blessings and openness on the other side of it. So it's a difficult, sensitive subject, but couples really do need to discuss it and express the feelings they have toward it.
Absolutely. Let me just say this. If you are married to, or if you are the individual who's gone through some type of sexual molestation in your life and it's really created a dent on your sexual relationship, unfortunately, you may be the one, or you have a spouse that is kind of connected sexually with somebody else because, this good, or it wasn't frequent, or wasn't what. And this is one of the, the top 5 reasons why couples go through struggle in marriage: communication, parenting, in-laws, finances, and sex. And when there's not a healthy sexual connection, it can lead to an affair. But the flip side of that is this: if you've been molested, or if your spouse has been molested and really did not and heal from it, what happens is, if I associate sex with secrecy and being bad and being kinky, and for me, your sex is plain Jane, it's normal. I may have a desire for a sexual experience that you can't fulfill based upon the trauma that I've gone through. If I've been molested by somebody older than me, and to a person who's considered here age-wise, I may have this, I don't know, this thing for older men or older women, and you can't fulfill that, and so I'm drawn to it. So this, listen, I'm telling you, there's so many complications that are associated with a person's sexual history, that it has to between you and your spouse if there are issues. There's a comment that came in, I'm reading it in real time, so I'm not sure what it says, but this is good. I agree that even in dating, acquiring the tools necessary for success reduces the likelihood of small issues becoming bigger triggers. Nothing wrong with seeking help. Thank you. Very, very true. And that's all we're talking about. It's worthy of conversation and is worthy of seeking help to address. But since we're on the topic, we got to go to the next one. And the next one happens to be adolescent promiscuity. Adolescent promiscuity. Take it away, Janella.
So if you start having sex at an early age, chances are you're going to continue to want to have it, and it may cause problems in your marriage. They have studies that shown that people who have early sexual activity, they typically end up in affairs. And not saying that that will be your case, but it is a high possibility of it. And a lot of times they relate it to the just freeness that they were able to have when they were young. It was just carefree in the back of the car. It doesn't matter, sneaking around in the parents' house. So it was this exhilaration. And a lot of times as you get older and you get into marriage, you have all of these responsibilities and all of these things, but you really want to reflect and go back to that younger time in your life, and it just continues, and it can actually cause problems in your marriage.
Very true. Like, you never forget the secret escapades that you had when you were a child. It was wild, it was frisky, it was recreational, it was passionate, and you're bringing a lot your relationship and expecting the same thing, and it's different. Like, it's just a different thing, it's a different reality, and you want to revert back to what it was because of your frustrations. And so if you've had many partners and now you have one, now the comparisons come in. You're comparing your current partner to what you had in the past, longing for what you had and it's just slippery slope. This is why it's always best to hold on and to preserve yourself and wait till you get married to have sex, so there are no comparisons. I mean, we don't teach that message enough. The church used to teach that. They don't even teach that anymore. Like, you can't go anywhere and hear a message on sexual purity or abstinence. It's almost like it's old, antiquated, it's ridiculous. What do you mean no sex? Like, the dating game today, if you don't give it up, you are done, unfortunately. And so that's why you have to be really careful who you date, how you date, because the origin of a thing determines the nature thereof. So if it starts off wrong, then you have the foundation for something that could be sketchy. But let's go to the last one. We're winding up, and we're talking about learning disabilities, ADHD. How could this impact an affair, Janella?
Oh my goodness. This one here, my heart goes out to anyone that have learning disabilities or ADHD. Actually, if you think about how they grow up, they probably were the ones that was considered the problem child. It was always an issue, or they always had to go from either doctor to doctor to figure out what was going on. And if they were never able to get that together when they become an adult, they will still have those issues. So imagine being in a relationship now and you come into contact with someone that wants to give you attention and show you love. That person may be easily swayed because they were deemed the problem child. So now someone wants me. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go over there and forget my husband or my wife or whatever. Someone wants to give attention, or they just want to be people pleasers. They just want to make everybody happy because they were typically the one that was always causing trouble, or they just person may not have the mental capacity to
Yeah.
deal with all of the emotional stress and strains that may come with marriage. So this definitely is a risk that can lead to infidelity just because they don't have the mental capacity to work through all of that. So it's important for that person to seek help and to have guidance and encouragement or medication if possibly to help alleviate some of the issues that can happen.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, I hope that today's topic was helpful for you and you got some insight. We spent 3 days unpacking all of the high risk things that contribute to an affair. I encourage you to watch this series with your spouse. Have a conversation about it. Like, have a deep dive, not a triggering one, but a forward moving conversation that can lead to your healing and restoration. If you're in need of help and you need Couples Academy, we are here for you. We provide a variety of different services that could be beneficial to you. All you need to do is go to the website, couplesacademy.org, set up a discovery call. We would love to serve you. But until then, tomorrow is, as you know, Ask the Experts. We're going to be answering your questions. So make sure you come with your question ready. We love, diving in deep and giving you what you need. But until then, have a great day. See you in the morning. Take care.